Hello, guys. How we doing on this Friday night? Give me a little sound check just to make sure. Super. Awesome. Love to hear that. Was a very nice day compared to yesterday, so definitely feeling a lot better about my performance today. All right, well, you know what? We'll get right into it, right? Already on the daily chart, what do we see? Very beautiful delivery to the upside, followed by a huge retracement, right? Huge retracement to the downside, retraced approximately, well, almost 60%, I'd say, of the weekly range, right? I'm just using this fib with the zero point 0.5 to approximate this, but I would say it looks like near 60%. If we just look very quickly, even more, just a tiny bit less, sorry. So 30% retracement, pretty much. Very huge retracement, leaving for both long and short opportunities. So whether you longed, whether you short, there were setups for both. So we're definitely going to be going over them here in a second. Just looking at the daily PA, what did we do? Well, we retraced into the discount of our range once again. Now, when we retrace into a discount inefficiency, I don't want to see this inefficiency revisited. So for me, this is extremely bearish, the fact that we went back down here. But NASDAQ was bullish, so we had to go take out these highs, forming SMT with ES, right? We can look at either swings. You have SMT on both. And just to be a little more precise, that SMT happened when you had your short opportunity. So definitely some weird PA, if I can say so, going into pretty much making a Tuesday potential high of week into a very huge downwards movement on Wednesday to just undo this whole movement going into Thursday and Friday. But if we go down into our 15-minute, we'll have a little more insight into why that happened. I see someone typing, so I'm going to just give it a sec. If you have any questions, by the way, guys, don't be scared to interrupt me at any point in time. Just looking at this PA on a 15-minute chart, right? And of course, we'll bring our sessions in here very quickly if I am able to. Awesome. What do we see? Well, we pretty much just expanded aggressively higher for the whole, right up until the opening range, right? And after the opening range, we had a little bit of high resistance followed by a very deep retracement, which on ES was an expansion, right? We broke and created a new low for the day. But seeing Asia, seeing all of this, we had no high probability low of day, right? So I always take certain things into consideration for me to look at, oh, well, this could be a candidate to be the low of day. So there is a probability that this is the low of the current day. But we had no PA like this. And when that happens, I'm usually just following the trend, right? This is when we see trending days. You'll see some form of low probability, low form in Asia, but we're just going to keep expanding, expanding, and expanding. And there was some short-term SMT. If we go here in the lower time frames, right, we can see it even on a 15-minute chart, just due to the fact that this swing point is just higher, barely higher. Let's look at the values actually. I'm always looking at the top left of my screen, by the way. The low is 364.75, here 364.75. So equal lows here actually. So we can frame SMT from this low being lower and this low being higher. So there was some SMT, but there is no higher time frame level for me in this specific spot. So I couldn't consider that as a high probability chance of making the low. But once we've already expanding all the way up here, right, just looking at New York Open, which is right here, if I actually just bring it back on my indicator, just so you guys can follow along nicely, New York Open right here. Well, we were already pretty much expanding along the way, and we had some very clear objectives higher, right? Liquidity above this high, of course, for current weekly high, but also previous week's high, which was just above here, formed the high of day, and also gave you your short opportunity formed through SMT. So previous week's high was taken with SMT. So that's definitely an area to look for shorts, right? It is what I would consider a deep premium for price. If we go down here, just so we see very clearly, I would have waited for 10 a.m., right? Just in any case. Why? Because we had 10 a.m. news. Now, I don't want to tell you what news without looking, so I'm actually going to go look right here. We had, yes, University of Michigan consumer sentiment. So we had 10 a.m. news. So for me, that means that I want to be waiting before 10 a.m. before engaging with price. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I entered almost right at open, right here around the 40-ish. I saw how we were respecting this fair value gap. I saw the distribution once again to go take our current week's high. So for me, I had a trade right here. I had my stop very tight just at the low of this candle. So I managed to get this R, but with low risk. What does low risk mean? Half risk. Why? Because I'm not going to be full risk before our first high impact news of the day. I understand that this move will most likely create a distribution. And I framed this whole move up, even due to its size, right? I framed this whole move up as manipulation. If we go back to the daily chart very quickly, we clearly closed bullish. So it's hard to frame this as a manipulation, but if we look at the week, we decided to go for a bearish close, right? We closed just under the weekly open. So for me, that was a bullish manipulation into bearish distribution, even though the manipulation was much larger than the distribution following. But if you are waiting until 10 a.m., what do you see? Well, you see a Judas swing higher. From this point on, I will be looking for shorts, right, in context, and at least framing them as a retracement into our current intraday range. Intraday means 15-minute. I would use the low from 930 just to have a nice midterm range, right? And if we are to expand past this level, I could also use the total daily range, right, which I would use where SMT was formed. So you could utilize this right here. Let me just adjust it so it doesn't overlap. This is our big range. This is our small range for smaller objectives. We are talking about a Friday here to close out the week. So if you want to have smaller objectives, I like to use the opening range, which in this case, it is this. We can implement stats about the opening range, which would tell you that we are looking for an opening range low, confluence from New York opening price, right? Returning to New York opening price. Just a classic accumulation, manipulation, distribution cycle. But truth is, you can keep it much more simpler than that. At this point, you're looking for shorts. You have higher time frame SMT, right? Previous week's high. You have your higher time frame point of interest, previous week's high. So what are you waiting for? Well, you're waiting for a breaker block to form. And since you're trying to go short, you're waiting for a bearish breaker. Now, I skipped all of this, but I actually want to see if from a mechanical approach, there is a breaker block. So this is equal. I'm looking for a range currently. So from a swing high to a swing low, that got broken first on the upside, following to the downside. There is no swing high here. So there is no breaker. Now, tell me if I'm wrong, guys, if you guys see it, but I don't see a breaker in here. All I see is a high resistance retracement to 10 a.m. open to then go for another raid, which a lot of people like to call the double purge on ES. Yes, there might be a breaker on ES here. I'm not looking at short-term SMT. That's true. On ES, where would we have formed a breaker? There is no bearish breaker on ES. I'm looking at my other charts, just making sure my things line up. No, there's no breaker on ES. Tell me what time. I'm talking specifically, guys, before this 1022 raid. No bearish breaker formed here, unless you're utilizing this, actually. I just noticed it. But this is a one candle breaker, which honestly, from a mechanical approach, this works. So actually there is. This did not form a swing point on NASDAQ, but looking purely mechanically, this is one on ES. You would have had a unicorn short opportunity here. Well, see, that's why you only trade NASDAQ, as I always say, right? But yes, this would have been a loss. I am going to point it out. Just for the sake of simplicity and for beginners to understand the fact that there is a mechanical approach to this. And of course, it's not going to be the approach that is going to offer the most amount of money, but it is a mechanical entry, so let's showcase it. Very tight stop loss, right? 2.5 handles on ES, and you would have looked for something like returning into discount. We're going to look at this entire setup, but yes, if you did trade ES, well, you would have had a loss before the successful setup, which came right after, right? From this point on, I'm looking here. There is no short-term SMT right up until, now let me find it, this point. So this is a tiny guy. Oh no. Okay, so we did not trade above here. I thought I saw some short-term SMT very quickly. So there was no breaker that formed right up until we traded below this. Let me just draw it out for you guys. So definitely high resistance PA right up till lunch, sorry guys. And having that 1250 definitely created the move. But you would have been break even for a while here, right? And just looking at it, what would have been your entry at this point in time? I would have entered on the first overlapping fair value gap. And then looking at this, as I said, right, personally, I traded the long and then I was done for the day. Very small objectives on a Friday. So I'm looking at this PA for the first time with you guys. 3 PD arrays would have brought your stop loss here. So you would have actually gotten stopped out very quickly here on NASDAQ as well. ES would have given you a successful entry, but as I said, I concentrate on NASDAQ. Now the idea is still valid. We're just basically distorting in time, right? We are consolidating. We are waiting for time to align. So where could I enter? Well, all I need is another setup for Confluence, right? So another breaker forms, another unicorn forms, and I can still continue since this first idea is valid, right? Taking the highs here's with our previous week low, forming a retracement where to our first discount and efficiency, which here, you know what? Why not frame it first? I would look at a 15-minute. Why? Because we have such a huge range. So a very conservative objective would have been this first discount and efficiency of our opening range. But if we use our full big range, we would be looking at this order block, high probability order block. So we use the full candle as our partial objective, as our retracement objective. Now, if you're framing this whole move to the downside as a retracement and not an expansion, then you'd be looking at this order block as your full take profit. But just to get right back into it, looking at this, you would have had an entry right here, right on this fair value gap, allowing for a stop at this swing high. Why? Because there's not 3 PD array, but this is the high that formed your breaker. I regard it as one. And if we trade above this, we're going to expand to this low resistance right here. So to me, that would be the only stop loss to consider. Now, if we just look without even putting a take profit on, you can see that even after being up, what is that? 3 point something R, it would have returned to break even. For me, there is no way in hell that I am letting a trade that I'm up almost 3R on return to break even without having any money taken out. And truth is, I'm getting stopped at break even at this point. And yes, we can discuss how you could have entered in lunch, right, during lunch and everything like that. But truth is, I wouldn't consider any entries here just because of how low probability they are. And yes, in this case, right, it's kind of funny seeing as how the first entry would have been a stop loss on ES, but the second entry would have given you perfect distribution, being able to hold it all the way down to the close of the day, which on NASDAQ did not happen because in this case, I would have been taking profits out. I'd like to think at this specific point in time, right, just due to the fact that it's consolidation here. So this is a high probability liquidity pool, but let's be pessimistic here and imagine that you've taken profits here. Let's actually plot our standard deviations of our new breaker right here and also of our old breaker that framed our initial setup. Looking at these, clearly our short-term partial is a great objective for reversal. And yes, this swing low in 2 to 2.5 is also a great objective, but it is not pessimistic, and I like to be pessimistic when doing these reviews. So we'll just look at this 2.31. I'd be very happy with taking profits here, especially after the day has moved this much. You have a very nice opportunity. Also, it was a scary one. What is that, like 1.25 handles away from stopping you out? I am definitely taking profits here, thanking God that I did not get stopped out right there, and then placing my trade break even. And to be honest, once we trade back all the way near my stop loss, sorry, being at break even, and then expand again, now my stop loss is going to be here. And seeing this us breaking structure at this point, I'm very happy with getting stopped out at this level. And that is if I did not stop out my trade manually when I saw us disrespect our first premium inefficiency in our 1 minute range. So this is just something to learn order flow a little bit. All I'm looking at any point in time is premium and discount. Premium and discount. And on a 1 minute, it's a little different. So yes, this inefficiency is at equilibrium, but this inefficiency is telling me everything I need to know. If we disrespect this, we're going to keep going higher, break this high. And if we go and break this high, I don't want to be in this trade anymore, just due to the fact that I don't want to lose money on a setup that already provided me with money. So definitely not the best when you start going down the time frames in regard to that, but very nice 2.31R opportunity that would have stopped you out after. And yes, of course, horrible when you see it that you missed out on an additional 160 handles, if we can say it, right? Something like that. Yes, 160 handles, but your move was right. You cut your piece. You should be happy with it. And yes, if you did trade before the news, there was opportunities, but as I always say, it's not worth it. I like to use the term always, but in terms of probabilities, it is very, very often that the news will just eradicate anything that happened in the first 30 minutes of New York, right? When we have specifically 10 a.m. news, usually we just reverse on the whole 9:30 to 10 movement. So I don't like being in that 9:30 to 10 movement because I'm trading manipulation, and I don't want to be trading manipulation. I want to be trading distribution. Does that make any sense? And no, we're not going to talk about the long opportunity here that barely did any move and that would not have made sense after going up 300, 400 handles, then going down 230 handles. Why the fuck are you trying to take another trade to the upside? I am not even, no, this is not something we'll be talking about. Do we have any questions just about today? Very simple day, right? Trending day to the upside and a very aggressive retracement. Truth is, PA was much nicer on ES today, but still, NASDAQ allowed for some opportunities. It's very rare that you'll see me saying that PA was nicer on ES. Listening to you explain things is like a professor teaching nuclear science in a concise, defined, easy way. That is a very nice compliment. I appreciate that. I do tend to go quickly, and then I see something and it's like, it's a shiny little object, and I'm like, oh, but look at this. Oh, I would have targeted here because this is consolidation, high probability objective, standard deviations. Oh, so cool. Return to an old swing point, right? Mitigation level. But I really try and keep myself only speaking on simple steps, simple things, because most people who come in here are beginners, right? Most of the people that aren't beginners maybe come in here like once a week, say hi, see the review on a day that they had a harder time. But most people that are beginners don't need all this bullshit. What do they need? I have a very simple model. That model today gave me 1 loss and 1 win. If you ended your full trade here, all right, let's just think full trade at partial, 2.31 minus 1R. I made 1.31R. If I'm risking 1 grand, I made 1,300 today. But even then, those are not the nice conservative numbers. The nice conservative numbers is I risked 500. I made, what would that be? 650. Yes. Sorry, I was reading your question. Well, your statement, Wolfe. And it's true. Look, I have nothing against ICT. He taught me what I know currently, right? Mainly a lot of things I know. I would say 80% of what I use in my training. But truth is, he's not a teacher, he's an analyst. So he's very good at sharing his concepts from an analyst standpoint. So for fun, to try and learn how the markets work, But when it comes to how to trade the markets, yes, he has brought some models, but even then, he can't even stick to them. He's having videos about his models and he's speaking about other models in a new model video. So I'm not saying he's a bad trader. I'm not saying he's bad at reading the markets. I'm saying honestly, he's not the best teacher. He is not the best to put into words what he knows, but as an analyst, he is the GOAT. If I can get to his level at some point, I will be very glad to. I don't follow his posts anymore. I won't be in his pace tomorrow. I had a lot of respect for the guy, but a lot of that left along the way. Just seeing him grow in this past year, a lot of my respect left with his, just like his Robbins Cup P&L, right? Respect was decreased to 0%. And yeah, AMP is also the broker I used for a while, but their commissions were a little bit higher. The thing with AMP that a lot of people like is the fact that they have very low margin requirements, but also their execution speed. So they're one of the quickest in terms of execution speed when connected to TradingView. Truth is, TradeStation is the one of the only ones we found looking into that offered insurance. And I'm not affiliated with any of them, and I won't recommend you to go on any specific broker. But personally, currently, I'm working with TradeStation. You have a bunch of different types of accounts, so if you choose the wrong type of account, maybe, but I didn't have any type of limit. I think on one day I traded 120 contracts. So I really don't have a limit on the amount of trades I'm allowed to take intraday. Yeah, pretty nice. Do you guys have any question about the day? I feel like it's pretty straightforward, right? It went aggressively higher and then very slowly lower. My pleasure. All right, guys. Well, very chill Friday review. Not much to speak on. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, it was not the best week in terms of performance for me. I missed the nice setups and I traded the horrible setups that I just had to wait for hours to get my 1.5 R. I'm ending the week down 2 R. First negative week in a while. Didn't want to say it just for transparency's sake. And I don't share P&L really anymore just because I saw that it doesn't attract the right people, if I can say it like that. I might at some point, especially if I'm going to be starting the Robbins Cup, then everything will be public. And I'm not scared of that, but I want to remain transparent with you guys nonetheless. So I did want to share that and make sure to include it in the YouTube video so that if people were wondering, yes, I am a real trader. I lose money sometimes. And you know what? It's part of the game. Was a rough week. Hopefully next week will be better, but last week of October, I don't really expect it to. I've had a great month nonetheless. I'm going to keep my next week at a maximum loss of 5R. If I hit that, then I'm done. I'm closing the month up 40R. I'm extremely happy with that result. Start trading London with me. I know it's amazing. I know London works. I know how to trade London with extreme precision, but I don't like trading at 2, 3, 4 a.m. I am in the EST time zone. I used to do that. I used not to trade London, but when I was trading crypto, I was trading at 2, 3, 4 a.m. And truth is, I'm just not on point at that time. I'm still awake. I'm still there. I can work, and that's what I do. I work at those times. I'm always awake. You can see me online in the Discord. If you're actually awake at these times, you'll see me online 18, 19 hours a day on Discord. But it's just I'm not on point at that time enough to be trading. When I wake up, first thing I do, I go on my charts. Well, I have my little morning routine, of course, but I go on my charts. I'm locked in. I just woke up. I have energy, and it takes that much to be able to filter through 3 hours of consolidation like we saw on Thursday. If I hadn't slept well, I would have blown my account right then and there, just like I did back in the day. Those specific days were death for me, right? And just looking at Twitter, you saw a bunch of people who were like, "Oh yeah, PA was shit, PA was shit." Sure, but you saw a bunch of people who blew their accounts, right? At least I did. On my feed, it was filled with like I had a great month and then I just destroyed it in one day. Well, I want to make sure that that never happens. And that's exactly why I'm going into next week with a maximum loss limit of 5 trades, pretty much. So 5R, if I am in low probability conditions, it's 0.5R risk, right? I'm allowing myself, basically, I'm risking 1K per trade. I'm allowing myself to lose $5,000 next week. And if there is a low probability day, I'll be risking $500 per trade. So I have a little of leeway in terms of trade amount. But if I come at some point in the week where I'm down 5 grand, I'm just going to stop myself, call it a month, and be happy. You better send those trade screenshots in futures. You know, always people ready to see that. And if it can help any other people, that's awesome. Do we have any final questions before we close this call? Sorry guys, I'm a little bit tired tonight, so I won't be spending 20 minutes with you all, as we tend to do on these Friday reviews. Yes, sir, Wolfie. 2 p.m. class tomorrow. Well, you guys have a great night. I wish you all the best for this weekend. Take some time off, recharge, get ready for the next trading week. And we'll be speaking once again on Sunday. I'll see you tomorrow, Wolfie, but on Sunday for a weekly outlook. You guys have a great weekend.